How about general advice you would offer to your children and grandchildren about raising children?
Oh, well, yeah, when we first started out, we didn't know very much. And I remember getting to a point when Darren was getting older and out of control, and I didn't know what to do. And we went to BYU one summer, and Dad took a class from somebody there. And he taught us how to raise children better. And we both embraced it, and it made it much easier. One thing is to never do for a child what they can do for themselves. Let them do their own things as soon as they can. And if they don't obey what you tell them to do, then you take away privileges. You don't, get mad and yell or anything, but you try to talk to them. Talking to them is really important, and explaining to them what they have done wrong and why they have their privilege removed. Explaining why things are done is very important, I think, so that they understand the consequence, because there's a consequence for every behavior, good or bad, and they need to understand about consequences and how they come about and how to handle the consequences of your actions.
Okay. Anything else you want to cover right now? We have
8 minutes left.
7 or 8 minutes on this tape.
Well, let's see. I can talk about teaching seminary for almost 5 years in our ward here. That was a really good experience for me because I learned a lot about the gospel. That was a testimony building experience, and teaching classes in primary, and I didn't teach much in Sunday school for some reason, but I taught in primary and young women's, and I enjoyed that very much. Learning seminary was a really interesting thing because we were taught to, whatever the scripture was, we were to teach that particular day. We were to read 3 times. And you read it through once to see what it was, then you read it through again to see what you might teach out of it, and then you read it through again and finally picked out what it was that you wanted to read and teach about it. And that was a real help to me to learn about scripture study and learning. It was a great experience. But it was so early in the morning.
I had a lot of people saying great things about you as a seminary teacher to me.
Oh, really?
Your mom was a great seminary teacher.
Oh.
Mind-blowing. Yeah.
Well, I just got a note a couple of weeks ago from a girl that she was in the last class I taught in 9th grade. She was a 9th grader. And she gave me a very nice thank you note about being my teacher. And she said she wasn't looking forward to going to seminary, but she really enjoyed it in my class and learned a lot, which I thought was nice after all these years. That's been a long time ago. And I was a counselor in the Relief Society presidency to Sister Arbonne before I became president. I always remember when I was called to be president, I told you guys I was going to be president, and that night Sister Hanson, who was the president, brought a big roll of batting. She brought it in and set it in the hallway there. When you came home, you looked at it and you said, "Is this the mantle of the Relief Society president?" That always gave me a chuckle. She said that. Yeah, so service in the church has always been important to me, to have a calling and to try my best to fulfill it. It's been really a good experience. Those are all testimony building things.
Did you ever have any missionary experiences as a nurse?
Not very much. I served as a stake missionary for 3 years in our ward. But as a nurse, I would try to talk to the doctors about it, but they weren't too interesting. And a couple times I missed really good opportunities because one of the guys was a Jew, and they were talking about Mormons, and And then they said he was a Jew. And he said something to the fact that, well, when you've been here for 5,000 years, and it took me till the next half hour before it dawned on me that I'd been here for, my ancestral line went back 5,000 years too. But I didn't think to say it in time. And one time one of the anesthesiologists asked me if I can't remember the word now. I'll have to think of that one later. What is it when you brainwash? He asked me if I brainwashed my children in the gospel. Brainwashed or something like that. I said, well, I guess you could call it that if you wanted to, but I said, I want my children to learn what I believe, and so I teach them that. I said, you drive your daughter down to the valley every day to school because you want her to learn at a good school. I said, it's the same thing to me, is to teach my kids the gospel.
All of us are morally obligated to teach our children according to our morals.
Yeah. So
So
I just thought that was kind of interesting. He thought it was like brainwashing. I'm sure they'd been talking about it. But one thing I had a problem with at work was the dirty jokes that they told. And if I was scrubbed in, I couldn't get away, And at that time, it wasn't the thing to talk to your doctors like your good buddies, You had to do what they said. Nowadays, you could say, hold those for when I'm not around. But that part was difficult. But a lot of them didn't swear when I was around. They knew not to swear. One place where I went to work, they asked me if I wanted coffee, and I said no, I don't drink coffee. And they said, oh, I bet by the time you leave here, we'll have you drinking coffee. But of course, I never did. So.
Okay. Anything else right now?
No, I think we're running out of time. The light's blinking.
What about your favorite music, or do you remember playing piano in church?
No, I only took piano lessons for a year, and I didn't play very well. I wish I could have gone on, but the older kids quit because we were running out of money, but I could have kept going, and I chose not to, and I've regretted that ever since. But one time, they asked me to play in Relief Society because there was nobody else around who could play. So I played a song in Relief Society that the last line was on top of the next page. And I was going along okay until I got to the next page, and all of a sudden my bifocals got in the way, and I couldn't find the music. I'm looking all over for it, but I never did find it. That's my only experience playing. I didn't play much.